Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, asks resident electoral commissioner in Adamawa to stay away from its office in the state. Aviation workers block access road to both wings of the Murtala Mohammed Airport in Lagos in protest of poor working condition and entitlements. Federal government grants provisional approval for malaria vaccine developed by scientists at Oxford University. On the foreign scene, explosions and gunfire rock residential areas in Sudan's capital as violence continues for a third day. Good evening, this is News at 7 on Western Spring Television. My name is Tunde Ido. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has asked resident electoral commissioner in Adamawa, Hudu Yunusa Ari, to stay away from its office in the state. The directive was conveyed in a letter by Secretary to the Commission, Rose Ariana Anthony. The REC had declared candidate of the All Progressive Congress APC, Aisha Binani Dahiru, as the winner of the Adamawa State governorship election when results from 10 local government areas had not been announced. In a swift response, INEC declared the announcement null and void, adding that the pronouncement is of no effect. Consequently, INEC suspended the collation of results of the supplementary election in Adamawa and invited the REC, returning officer, and all officials involved to report back to the Commission's headquarters in Abuja. As a follow-up to the action already taken, the electoral umpire today put out a communique strongly directing that Mr. Yunusa Ari should stay away from the Commission's office in Adamawa State until further notice. In the meantime, members of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) in Adamawa State have staged a demonstration over the gubernatorial election in the state. The protesters, who marched through the streets of Yola, capital of Adamawa, held placards to condemn the action of the resident electoral commissioner in the state, Hudu Yunusa Yari. Speaking with journalists during the protest, the Director General of the PDP Campaign Council in Adamawa, Felix Kinjamo, said the Electoral Commission should conclude the election and announce Governor Amadou Fintiri as the winner. Governor Fintiri's first term in office expires on May the 29th. 24 hours after controversy erupted in Adamawa following the declaration of election results by the Resident Electoral Commissioner (REC) of the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC), Hudu Yunusa Ari, reactions have continued to pour in. While some commentators believe INEC is complicit in the erroneous declaration, others believe that the electoral umpire has further compounded the trust issues it had initially planted in Nigerians. In this report, Emmanuel Ujuadugele looks at the beginning of the saga and what was at stake during Saturday's supplementary polls.
The stage for Sunday's drama in Adamawa State was set 3 weeks ago when the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC), through the state's collation officer Professor Mohammed Mele, declared the governorship election inconclusive.
The result is therefore considered to be inconclusive. Thank you very much.
According to INEC, the total cancelled votes were more than the margin of victory between incumbent governor, candidate of the People's Democratic Party (PDP), Amadou Fintiri, and his main rival, Aisha Binani Dahiru of the All Progressives Congress (APC). The incumbent governor scored 421,524 votes, winning 13 of Adamawa's 21 local government areas, while Ms. Dahiru won 390,275 votes, creating a margin of 31,249, winning in 8 local government areas. In the supplementary election slated for Saturday, 15th April 2023, voting was to take place in 69 polling units in 20 of the 21 local government areas of the state. There, the total number of registered voters was 42,785, while the permanent voters' cards PVCs collected in those polling units were 36,935. And just as collation was still ongoing, State Resident Electoral Commissioner of INEC in Adamawa, Hudu Yunusa Ari, on Sunday morning declared Senator Aisha Dahiru as winner of the supplementary poll.
You see, based on you cannot. Based on the the APC scored the highest
Moments later, that announcement was declared null and void by INEC's national headquarters through its National Commissioner Information and Voter Education, Festus Okoye, who also condemned the assault of the commission staff.
So he had no right whatsoever to go and make a declaration and also make a return when there have been results that have been warehoused and there have also been supplementary results that were ongoing. A national commissioner cannot be treated as if he or she is a common criminal. A former vice chancellor of Usman Danfodio University, a senior citizen, was stripped naked and dragged. This commission will not allow that to
The Department of State Services has now commenced investigation into that attack as seen in a viral video, which seemed to show a man suspected to be a staff of the agency being manhandled by angry youths in the aftermath of the controversial announcement of the winner of the Adamawa state election. Parties involved in yesterday's incident have been summoned to Abuja, and all eyes and ears are now on Adamawa state as questions are flying around. Will there be another rerun? Will the wreck be prosecuted? INEC will need to respond to these questions in the coming days. Emmanuel Ujadigele, Western Spring Television News.
Officials of the Nigeria Labour Congress (NLC) have stormed the National Secretariat of the Labour Party in Abuja as they showed solidarity for the party's embattled national chairman, Julius Abure. The NLC officials were led by its president, Joe Ajero, in the Utako district of Abuja. It came amidst the leadership crisis rocking LP after a court had restrained Mr. Abure and others from parading themselves as officials of the party. Following the development, the LP Vice Chairman South Lamidi Apapa declared himself as the party's acting chairman. But Mr. Ajero said the Labour movement will resist any plot to throw the Labour Party into chaos. He explained that the NLC visited the LP headquarters to fish out those who want to usurp the party's leadership. In other news, aviation workers today blocked access roads to both the international and domestic wings of the Murtala Mohammed Airport in Lagos in protest of poor working conditions and entitlements. The situation led to serious gridlock along Airport Road in Ikeja axis of Lagos, with the entrance of the Murtala Mohammed Airport Terminal 2 being mostly affected. Last week, aviation unions announced plans to embark on a warning strike over the failure of the federal government to meet their demands and minimum wage and other sundry issues. Specifically, the workers are demanding the approval and implementation of the agreement conditions of service as agreed between them and the Salaries, Incomes and Wages Commission and the Office of the Head of Civil Service of the Federation. Speaking to journalists, Secretary General of the Association of Nigeria Aviation Professionals, ANAP, Abdulrazak Saidu, said it was high time the government adhered to their terms. According to him, workers in the aviation sector have had to go through several challenges which had lingered for the past 7 years. Meanwhile, the federal government has urged the striking aviation workers to resume work, saying the requested adjustment of the minimum wage will soon be paid. In a statement, spokesman for the Ministry of Aviation, Oluseyi Odutayo, expressed the ministry's displeasure at the industrial action embarked on by the workers, saying the ministry had made efforts to address their demands. He described the strike as unnecessary, stressing that it will increase the hardship by Nigerians as well as lead to economic losses. Earlier, the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport advised travelers and stakeholders to make contingency plans to avoid missing their appointments. You're watching News at 7 on Western Spring Television. Still to come. Explosions and gunfire rock residential areas in Sudan's capital as violence continues for a third day. We'll bring you more on this when we return.
16th September 1923, named Harry Lee Kuan and known as Lee Kuan Yew, he was often addressed by his initials of LKY. Lee Kuan Yew was a barrister and the first Prime Minister of Singapore between 1959 and 1990. Educated at Raffles Institution from 1936 to 1940 and the Fitzwilliam House between 1947 and 1949, Lee Kuan Yew established a highly effective and anti-corrupt governance system that midwifed the transformation of Singapore into a high net worth income economy within a generation. He never hid his exception to Western mode democratic ideal, which he believed had not assisted developing nations to attain good government. Before his death on 23rd March 2015, the People's Action Party, which he founded, had used its political influence to establish the United World College of Southeast Asia to expand his economic ideas among countries that constitute the Asian Tiger. Western Spring Television identifies Lee Kuan Yew as a major character in history. Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela was an anti-apartheid activist who gave his all for the elimination of what has been described as the world's most vicious rule of the unjust and man's inhumanity against man. He was born July 18, 1918 in Mvezo, South Africa. Educated and trained as a successful legal practitioner, he took up the gauntlet of a human activist against segregation by the minority white suprematists in South Africa. At the climax of his trial for treason, orchestrated by the minority South African government, the great crusader for democratic equality was prepared to pay the supreme sacrifice to establish majority rule in his native land. He told white jurists that if achieving freedom for his people was worth his life, he was prepared to die. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in Robben Island, described as the most notorious prison in the world. It was from this same prison that he came out as a free man to assume office as South Africa's first black president in 1994. Western Spring Television identifies Nelson Mandela as a watershed character in history. Named Mao Zedong at birth, but globally known as Mao Zedong, he was a Chinese revolutionary and founder, People's Republic of China, which he led as chairman of the Chinese Communist Party from 1949 until his death in 1976. He was a communist who believed in the attainment of power by the instrumentality of gun. His wise saying, "Political power grows out of the barrel of gun," formed the major plank of his revolutionary struggle for the control of China. In the long span of his leadership and political power, Mao Zedong relentlessly entrenched the communist philosophy in China, which emphasized the revolutionary struggle of the vast majority of people against the exploiting class and their state structures. The communist leaders defined the class struggle as people's war. Mao Zedong was a story of grace to grace, having risen from peasantry to preeminent status as China's most respected leader. Western Spring Television identifies Mao Zedong as a major character in history.
Welcome back. This is still news at 7 on Western Spring Television. A reminder of our headlines. Independent National Electoral Commission INEC asks resident electoral commissioner in Adamawa to stay away from its office in the state. Aviation workers block access road to both wings of the Murtala Mohammed Airport in Lagos in protest of poor working conditions and entitlements. Federal government grants provisional approval for malaria vaccine developed by scientists at Oxford University. And on the foreign scene, explosions and gunfire rock residential areas in Sudan's capital as violence continues. for a third day. The Osun State Police Command has assured residents of adequate protection of their lives and property, while criminals will be prevented from disrupting the peace of the state. Osun State Police spokesperson Yemisi Opalola made the statement when some suspects were paraded at the State Police headquarters in Oshogbo, the Osun State capital today. Olayinka Ali was there and completes the story.
The police command in Osun State today paraded 3 suspected criminals on various charges bordering on murder, armed robbery, and membership of unlawful society. Briefing journalists on behalf of the State Police Commissioner at the command's headquarters at Ring Road, Oshogbo, the police public relations officer in the state, Yemisi Opalola, stressed that following a reported case of armed robbery on Friday, the police swung into actions and apprehended the suspects. The suspects, Sadiq Adegoke and Ajibola Abubakar, both robbed Joseph Wusu on Friday morning at around 9 a.m. around Capital Area, Oshogbo, Osun State capital. Joseph, a 20-year-old student of a college of education here in Oshogbo, was on the bike going to get food at a popular eatery when Sadiq Adegoke stopped the bike, sat behind Joseph, and took him to a loan area where the sum of 150,000 naira was transferred to a bank account belonging to Abubakar Opeyemi amidst threats.
And they stopped my bike and they said that they sit down at my bike that I should follow them. I said, what did I do? They said that if I talk that they will slap me. I said, what did I do? They carry me, go to that place, the new site. Nobody did that site. And they collect my phone. They said that I should open my phone. I open my phone. They go to my account, they check my account, and I told them that this money, look my money, that my school fees, and I'm begging them that they should please, and I'm begging that guy that they should please, that money is not mine, and he refused.
Sadiq Adegoke, however, did not deny the allegations as he spoke in Yoruba language and confessed that this is about the 5th time he has been robbing innocent people.
Yahoo kọ́lá mú ta gbó lọ́wọ́ rẹ̀. Kápítà láti gbó lọ́wọ́ rẹ̀. Ebi ní kápítà àrí ọ̀kadà láti rí. Bá a ṣe ilé ọ̀kadà rẹ̀ dá dúró, àdékọ́ ọ̀kadà rẹ̀ dúró, ọ̀kadà rẹ̀ dúró. Bí ọ̀kadà rẹ̀ ṣe dúró, àjọ tó kò síbi ẹ̀yìn ọ̀kadà rẹ̀. Ẹ̀yìn ọ̀kadà tó gbé náà ni ó gbé èmi àti ẹ̀ àti ọ̀kadà àti tiwa náà. Ó tẹ̀lé àlọ́bí ọ̀kadà tó yà sí ìyànà wájú jíjà rẹ̀. Mẹ̀sí nǹkan tẹ́ anybody nǹkan tá a kì í ṣe inú gbó àdẹ̀bá sọ̀rọ̀ ọmọ orí fóònù wà rí ẹ̀.
Ajibola Abubakar, whose account the money was transferred to after the operation, disclosed that this is not the first time Sadiq would use his bank account, as he thought it was the bricklaying job Sadiq does that fetches him money.
What bring me here is that get one of my guy who transfer money into my account and come my side that time. So he come my side, come me to say, Alpha, do you see the change where I sent to your account? I think say now 1.5 he sent to me rather, and he talks say now 150. How come 150? During that period, in they disturb me. I talk say my network no dey okay. Maybe you should come back night. Me I no know say the money wey him do na fraud money.
Another suspect that was paraded was Kowiyu Abiodun, an 18-year-old said to be one of Rashid Okoilu's boys who had been tormenting some residents of Ede in Osun State. Although Rashid has been remanded at the correctional center, Kowiyu was at large and came back to town recently. The police said immediately he was cited. Some residents contacted the police and he was arrested immediately.
Pé mo wà pẹ̀lú àwọn Rashidi Okoilu mi ò dẹ̀ sí pẹ̀lú wọn ọlá pé ọjọ́ Friday ní ìrọ̀lẹ́ ọjọ́ Friday nǹkan bíi 6:30 mo yẹ sọ pé níbi tí mò ń gbé so wá ní ọmọ ọ̀rẹ́ mi kan tí ẹ pé àtijọ́ rí ara ti pẹ́ bẹ́ẹ̀ tẹ́lẹ̀ wá wálé sí ilé ẹ̀dẹ̀ padà ọmọ ẹ̀ lára jọ lọ sínú àdúgbò wa bàtà máa dàdúgbò wa bàbá tó jẹ́ bí abiseri kí fún àwọn Haúsá ó wá lóun fẹ́ rí ọmọ náà papọ̀ pẹ̀lú èmi àti ẹ̀ mọ́.
Parading the suspects, the police public relations officer Yemisi Opalola said the command would continue to arrest criminals and make the state difficult for them to hibernate.
You have known Osun State to be a state of crime busters. We have been busting crime and criminal activities, and which we will continue to do. Even if some people commit some crimes, or criminal activities from other states, and they should enter into this state, you will be sure that we are going to apprehend them, and they will be dealt with according to the extant law. That is the same thing that happens to these ones. They cannot play smart on us at any time. Anytime they do anything, Osun State is not a place for the criminals to hibernate. They cannot escape us. And that is why we have been able to make that kind of success.
Meanwhile, no exhibits were recovered from the suspect. Olayinka Ali, River FM News.
A coalition of civil society organizations has called on President Muhammadu Buhari not to renew the tenure of the Controller General of the Nigeria Immigration Service, Idris Issa Jare, saying such move will be tantamount to non-sensitivity. The CSO stated this at a news conference today attended by Center for Sustainable Dialogue, the Osun Masterminds, Center for Public Accountability, Transparency and Accountability Group, and Media Rights Initiative. According to them, Mr. Jare's tenure ended on the 24th of April 2022, but by the decision of the president, it was elongated by a year. The CSOs, which relied on the letter of extension, said the one-year elongation ends on April 24th, 2023. While addressing journalists, Comrade Olufemi Lawson pointed to a letter issued from the Office of the Controller General to the effect of an official trip, which stated that he will be away from April 13th to April 25th, when his tenure will have been duly and officially terminated. This comes after the CSOs petitioned the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, and the Minister of Interior, Rauf Aregbesola, over alleged illegal plans to extend the tenure of Mr. Jere as Controller General of the Nigeria Immigration Service.
Let us also state that only a few days ago, a letter was issued by the Office of the Controller General to the effect of an official trip. A man that ordinarily should be packing up his files to vacate office in the next few days decided in his own decisive decision to embark on an official trip as the CG of the immigration. We have attached, just like we said, a letter to that effect announcing his official assignment on this trip. Even though he knew that his tenure would be exhausted by the 24th of April 2023, this letter indicated that the trip would elapse on the 25th of April, where his tenure would have been already exhausted. It is important to state that this official trip is being embarked upon by Mr. Dere on the bills of the Nigerian people. And that is why we are keenly.
Number one, the fact that Mr. President should not even consider, for whatever reason, to extend the tenure of the incumbent acting CG. Before he retired from office, he acted for 7 months when Babade left office as Controller General. He was next in line, and he spent 7 months in office. But by the time he spent the 7th month, he already clocked 60. And that's what I was referring to. So he has been privileged to be Controller General for 7 months, and then he retired.
I was told last time I wanted to travel out of the country that I had to travel to, Kebbi or Jigawa, that Jigawa is the only place. And this is the time of insecurity where even if I go by air, there are spaces I still have to cover by road, or because of me. I do not want to tell the story of how it happened. But sincerely speaking, the man's tenure has been riddled of corruption and non-performance. So what we are saying here is that to the question of Akintuju, who said, are we not jumping? We are not jumping gun. It's obvious, and that's why we also call on the press to be much more vibrant. We are not saying you be combative, but you can be more vibrant. That is what saved America from the Trump malady. So in quotes, we should rise up to occasion and challenge status quo when we know that things are running foul of the law. God help us.
Thank you. I want to appreciate everyone.
What's the name of all the bodies that made us?
We'll give you the name.
We will send it. Center for Sustainable Dialogue.
Elsewhere, the federal government has granted a provisional approval for the R21 matrix malaria vaccine developed by scientists at Oxford University. Director General of the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, Mojisola Adeyeye, made the announcement at a news briefing today. The development comes days after Ghana became the first country to approve the vaccine, which is said to be 80% effective. Professor Adeyeye said NAFDAC received the dossier of the R21 and subjected it to independent review by experts from Nigeria's tertiary institutions and the agency's in-house vaccine review committee. The Director General said a joint review was then called after the team assessed the vaccine as adequate and the in-house committee also assessed it as satisfactory. On the foreign scene, explosions and gunfire are rocking residential areas in Sudan's capital, Khartoum, as violence continues for a third day. A doctors' union says the vicious power struggle within the country's military leadership has left almost 100 civilians dead. The fighting follows a rift between two men, the head of the army and the leader of a rival paramilitary group, the Rapid Support Forces. Regional African leaders hope to travel to Sudan today to try to steer the country back to the path towards a civilian government. Opposition activist Valdemar Kara-Murza has been sentenced to 25 years in jail in Russia for charges linked to his criticism of the war in Ukraine. He was found guilty of treason, spreading false information about the Russian army, and being affiliated with an undesirable organization. The Russian-British former journalist and politician is the latest of several Putin opponents to have been arrested or forced to flee Russia. He has denied all of the charges.
We support the right of Mr. Kara-Murza and every Russian citizen to have a voice in the direction of their country. Mr. Kara-Murza and countless other Russians believe in and hope for a Russia where fundamental freedoms are upheld, and we will continue to share those hopes and work for that outcome.
Let's bring you that story brought to you earlier from Sudan. Explosions and gunfire are rocking residential areas in Sudan's capital, Khartoum, as violence continues for a third day. A doctors' union says the vicious power struggle within the country's military leadership has left almost 100 civilians dead. The fighting follows a rift between two men, the head of the army and the leader of a rival paramilitary group, the Rapid Support Forces. Regional African leaders hope to travel to Sudan today to try to steer the country back on the path towards civilian government.
Fierce clashes have been reported across Sudan as fighting between rival armed factions continues to spread. Sudan's army appeared to gain the upper hand on Sunday in a bloody power struggle with rival paramilitary forces pounding their bases with airstrikes. Violence between the army units loyal to General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, head of Sudan's Transitional Governing Sovereign Council, and a paramilitary group called the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, led by General Muhammad Hamdan Dagalo, who is deputy head of the council, erupted on Saturday and continued into its third day. Nearly 100 people have been killed, a doctors' union said, and one estimate put the number of injured at 1,100. Both sides claim to control key sites in the capital, Khartoum, where residents are sheltered from explosions. Earlier on Sunday, they held a temporary ceasefire to allow the wounded to be evacuated, although it was not clear how strictly they stuck to it. Doctors warned that the situation at hospitals in Khartoum is extremely difficult and that the fighting was stopping both staff and medical supplies from reaching injured people. The fighting is part of a vicious power struggle within the country's military leadership, which has escalated into violence between rival factions. The battles follow rising tensions over the proposed integration of the RSF into the military. The disagreement has delayed the signing of an internationally backed agreement with political parties of a transition to democracy. A coalition of civilian groups that signed a draft of that agreement in December called on Saturday for an immediate halt to hostilities to stop Sudan from sliding towards total collapse. Meanwhile, the international community has strongly condemned the violence. Leading Arab states, the United States, China, Russia, United Nations, European Union, and African Union have all called for an end to the hostilities.
It's a fragile situation. There are other actors that may be pushing against that progress, but this is a real opportunity to finally carry forward the civilian-led transition, and one that we and other countries are trying to bolster.
We ask for an immediate cessation of hostilities between the combatants.
While the battle for control of Sudan intensifies, former Sudanese Prime Minister Hamdok Abdallah, who called for a ceasefire, has said that the civic movement may encounter setbacks but will never be defeated.
I speak to you today as our country faces the danger of separation, and I say to you that when a bullet is fired from a weapon, it cannot tell the difference between the attacker and those being attacked, and the victims are the Sudanese people.
Temitope Ajijalaoluola, Western Spring Television News.
In the United Kingdom, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has been investigated by Parliament's standard watchdog over a possible failure to declare an interest. Mr. Sunak has been investigated over whether a declaration of interest was open and frank on the rules set out by the Commissioner for Standards. It was guarded that the probe relates to a childcare firm his wife has a share in. This morning, Labour MP Catherine McKinley queried the Prime Minister on the logic of the policy. Last month, Mr. Sunak faced questions over shares his wife holds in Coral Kids, a childcare agency that could benefit from a new policy unveiled in the spring budget.
The other one is childminders and increasing the number of childminders. Can you explain why the government's chosen to give a £600 bonus if you sign up as an individual, as a childminder, but if you go through one of the 6 private childcare agencies, that you get a £1,200 bonus, a double bonus? Can you explain the logic behind that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this has been designed in consultation with the sector to make sure that it's
with
effective.
The 6 childcare agencies.
I said, well, I think it's been designed with the sector. I'm happy to get back to you.
There are only 6 childcare agencies, and they're advertised on the government's website. What conversations have the government had with these agencies about these proposals?
I'll happily write back to you and the committee on exactly what conversations are had and the rationale for that.
The rationale, the use of taxpayers' money to give double bonuses to sign up with private agencies.
Well, I think it's a reflection of the fact that they're through intermediaries, so there are additional costs, and ultimately we just want to make sure the policy is effective in bringing additional people into the system, because I think...
And there's nothing the Prime Minister wishes to declare in respect of that?
No, I mean, all my disclosures are declared in the normal way.
We'll go back to one of the stories we brought to you earlier, which wasn't ready, but now it's ready. Back to Nigerian stories. Winners have been emerging from the just concluded supplementary elections conducted by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. The elections was initially scheduled for February 25 and March 18th, but was later suspended by the electoral umpire. In this report, Toby Sanusi takes us through the aftermath of the 2023 supplementary elections in the country.
Last Saturday, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, conducted supplementary elections across 24 states of the Federation. The election was a rerun of governorship seats in Kebbi and Adamawa states, while on the other side of the divide, 93 legislative seats were up for contest in other states. Apart from the Enugu East senatorial election, which was postponed owing to the murder of Labour Party candidate Oyibo Chukwu, who was later replaced by his brother Kelvin Chukwu. The other supplementary elections were rolled over from the February 25th and March 18th polls. In many of the affected states, the election was either marred by violence or votes were cancelled as a result of various degrees of discrepancies. In Kebbi State, where the governorship tussle was between a former teacher, Nasiru Idris of the All Progressives Congress, APC, and the candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Major General Aminu Bande, retired. The APC candidate, who was leading in the earlier cancelled election, eventually clinched the governorship seat, having garnered 409,225 votes, to defeat his closest rival of the PDP, who had 360,940 votes.
That Idris Nasir of APC, having satisfied the requirements of the law, is hereby declared the winner and returned elected.
At the state assembly level, elections were conducted in Akwa Ibom, Bayelsa, Ebonyi, Edo, Imo, Kaduna, Kano, Kebbi, Niger, Ogun, Taraba, Yobe, Jigawa, Katsina, Enugu, and Adamawa states, while senatorial supplementary elections were held in Sokoto, Kebbi, and Zamfara states. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives supplementary elections were conducted in Akwa Ibom, Anambra, Bayelsa, Edo, Imo, Kano, Kebbi, Kogi, Oyo, Rivers, Sokoto, Taraba, Zamfara, Jigawa, and Ebonyi states. In the aftermath of the supplementary polls, the APC clinched 60 seats at the 10th Senate, while the PDP holds on to 32 seats, while the third first party, Labour Party, got 8 seats, New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, and the Social Democratic Party, SDP, both with 2 seats each, while the Young People's Party, YPP, and the All Progressives Grand Alliance, APGA, managed a seat each. With the result, Aminu Tambuwal of Sokoto State, Dave Umahi of Ebonyi State, and Abubakar Bello of Niger State are the 3 governors who have won senatorial seats. However, at the lower chamber level where result collation were still ongoing, as at the time of filing these reports, the results declared so far have seen the APC winning 169 seats, PDP with 117 seats, Labour Party holds 35 seats, NNPP with 19 seats, APGA having 5 seats, the SDP and the ADC holding 2 seats each, and YPP with a seat, while more results are still expected. So far, results of the 2023 gubernatorial polls have seen the APC winning in 16 states, PDP 9, the Labour Party winning Abia State, and the NNPP claimed its first gubernatorial seat in Kano State. All eyes are now on the election results turnout in the crisis-ridden Adamawa State, where the power tussle in the northeastern state with over 4 million population is between the incumbent governor of the PDP, Ahmadu Fintiri, and the female candidate, Aishat Binani Ahmed of the APC. Toby Sanusi, Western Spring Television News.
Still ahead, attempt to launch most powerful rocket ever into space has been postponed for at least 48 hours. We have more on this and other business stories after this break. Please stay with us.
Olayinka Herbert Macaulay, politician, nationalist and journalist, was the first Nigerian to qualify as a civil engineer, surveyor and architect. Born on November 14, 1864, Herbert Macaulay was the founder of Nigeria's National Democratic Party, the first political party in pre-independent Nigeria. Scholars of Nigeria's political history describe Herbert Macaulay as the intellectual bulldog of 19th century Nigerian nationalist movement, in the deference to his qualities as founder and leader of 2 foremost political parties, Nigeria National Democratic Party (NNDP) and National Council of Nigerian Citizens (NCNC). His matchless versatility in party organization and control kept the British colonialists on their toes in the entire span of his active life. After his death on 7th May 1946, Herbert Macaulay remains a hero of his country, which recognized his anti-colonial struggles. Today, Nigeria's 10 naira coin bears his oval face and trademark moustache. Western Spring Television identifies Herbert Macaulay as a major character in history. Born 16th September 1923, named Harry Lee Kwan and known as Lee Kuan Yew, he was often addressed by his initials of LKY. Lee Kuan Yew was a barrister and the first Prime Minister of Singapore between 1959 and 1990. Educated at Raffles Institution from 1936 to 1940 and the Fitzwilliam House between 1947 and 1949, Lee Kuan Yew established a highly effective and anti-corrupt governance system that midwives the transformation of Singapore into a high net worth income economy within a generation. He never hid his exception to Western mode democratic ideal, which he believed had not assisted developing nations to attain good government. Before his death on 23 March 2015, the People's Action Party, which he founded, had used his political influence to establish the United World College of Southeast Asia to expand his economic ideas among countries that constitute the Asian Tiger. Western Spring Television identifies Lee Kuan Yew as a major character in history.
You're welcome back. Now to business stories. The Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, NECA, says any attempt by the federal government to increase taxes will lead to a negative impact on households, individuals, and businesses. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, had recently called on the government to reduce its debt by focusing on increasing the tax basket and compliance as a means of generating revenue to cut borrowing. In a statement, NECA's Director General Adewale Smart Oyorinde said the move to increase taxes in order to reduce borrowing as suggested by the IMF will only lead to disaster for an economy struggling to stay afloat. He, however, said the government should consider widening its tax net as the association had posted on many occasions and at various fora. An attempt to launch the most powerful rocket ever into space has been postponed for at least 48 hours. The vehicle, known as Starship, has been built by U.S. entrepreneur Elon Musk SpaceX company. The uncrewed mission today was called off minutes before the planned launch from Boca Chica, Texas. Mr. Musk tweeted that the problem appears to have been caused by a frozen pressurant valve, but SpaceX could try to launch again later this week. Starship stands nearly 120 meters high and is designed to have almost double the thrust of any rocket ever. India and Russia are discussing a free trade agreement to move that could deepen bilateral commercial ties that have flourished since the war in Ukraine broke out. The FTA talks marks a step up in economic relations between the two countries, despite calls from Western countries for India to gradually distance itself from its dominant weapon supplier, Russia, over its February 2022 invasion of Ukraine. Russian Trade Minister Denis Manturov, who is also the Deputy Prime Minister, made this known at an event in New Delhi. He noted that both nations will pay special attention to the issues of mutual access of production to markets of both countries. He stated that together with the Eurasian Economic Commission, Moscow was looking forward to intensifying negotiations on a free trade agreement with India. India's imports from Russia more than quadrupled to $46.33 billion over the last fiscal year, mainly through oil. Welcome to sports. Nigeria will face Niger Republic, Togo, and Burkina Faso in Group B of the maiden edition of the 2023 WAFU B Under-20 Girls Cup. The draw was held at WAFU B headquarters in Abidjan today. Ghana is paired in Group A alongside Benin Republic and Cote d'Ivoire. The maiden edition of the WAFU B Under-20 Girls Cup is scheduled for Kumasi from May 20th to June 4th, 2023. Barcelona President Joan Laporta says an investigation into claims that the club paid referees for preferential treatment is part of a smear campaign. Prosecutors allege that Barcelona paid Jose Maria Enriquez Nagria, former vice president of Spain's referees committee, 8.4 million euros, but Barcelona says the money was for consultancy work. Laporta described the investigation as one of the most ferocious attacks in the club's history, stating that he is convinced Barcelona have not committed any crime or sports-related corruption. Last month, the court heard that Barca had been indicted on charges of corruption, breach of trust, and false business records. European football's governing body UEFA has said it is also investigating the matter. Laporta said Barcelona have a paper trail of the payment made between 2001 and 2018. He accused La Liga president Javier Tebas of trying to damage Barcelona's reputation and said rivals Real Madrid, who have joined the prosecutor's case, have always been favored in terms of refereeing decisions.
Gustado que comparecieran porque creo que es un ejercicio de cinismo sin precedentes y además que ha sido un club que ya lo sabemos todos, que ha sido muy favorecido por las decisiones arbitrales, que ahora se rasgue las vestiduras y diga que aparecen como perjudicados durante el periodo digamos más esplendoroso de la historia del Barça, donde lo ganábamos todo, y que ellos se sienten perjudicados por este caso. Hombre, es un ejercicio de cinismo que no va a ningún lado y que además espero que sirva al juicio para desenmascararlos en este sentido.
And in England, Chelsea interim manager Frank Lampard says describing the team as currently broken is a bit much. The Blues sacked manager Graham Potter earlier this month with the team 11th in the Premier League, despite spending more than £550 million on players this season. The Champions League is the last competition they can win the season, but they trail Real Madrid 2-0 before tomorrow's quarter-final second leg.
We're not where we want to be. I think the word broken is a bit much, but we're not where we want to be. And that's clear. League position is a reality in the Premier League. We're 2-0 down in this game. So I think those things are just reality. We have to work against that and show in every way we can because we're in that moment. I don't think anything tomorrow will be better than winning the Champions League, from my opinion, because we had many moments on that run of difficulties against Barcelona in that game and Napoli and all this. It was a huge run where there were a lot of big achievements. But I understand your point. I think for us, considering the result now, considering the team we're up against, because in our moment that we're in, we have to fight really hard to make it happen. So of course that would be special.
And that's all at this hour. But before we go, here is a recap of our major stories. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has asked Resident Electoral Commissioner in Adamawa, Udu Yunusa Ari, to stay away from its office in the state. Aviation workers today blocked access roads to both the international and domestic wings of the Murtala Mohammed Airport in Lagos in protest of poor working conditions and entitlements. The federal government has granted provisional approval for the R21 matrix malaria vaccine developed by scientists at Oxford University. On the foreign scene, explosions and gunfire are rocking residential areas in Sudan's capital, Khartoum, as violence continues for a third day. Please do follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. I am Tunde Ido. Good evening.